Before I went to Jordan, I didn't really know a lot about the country or about the culture. I knew a lot of vocabulary words from studying Arabic here in the classroom, but I really had no idea what Amman would be like, or even the neighborhood that we were going to, or much of anything else.
Yes, there was a call to prayer every day. There were lots of signs of this is an Islamic society, but when you talk to people, their lives weren't driven by their faith as much as I thought they were going to be. And that depended on person to person. I had some really religiously conservative friends who prayed 5 times a day and constantly thought about God and where he was leading them in their lives and things like that. But as a whole, the society was pretty casual about religion.
Most of what surprised me was how much more Western Amman felt than what I expected.
From the things that I saw, there were a lot of very normal people. It wasn't a war zone. It wasn't anything really dramatized that you'd see in the media.
يا مصور صور عمان يا مصور صور عمان وهدم الرغدان ورود للقائد ابو عبد الله والعين الهاشميه ويا مصور صور عمان هدم الرغدان ورود يا مصور صور عمان هدم الرغدان ورود للقائد ابو عبد الله للقائد ابو عبد الله والعين الهاشميه يا مصور صور عمان صور عمان هدم الرغدان ورود يا مصور صور عمان هدم الرغدان ورود للقائد ابو عبد الله للقائد ابو عبد الله والعين الهاشميه صور صور عمان
I came in with this idea of really wanting to spend all my time there making friends with, people who live there and speaking Arabic and meeting new people and discovering new parts of the city. And I spent a good amount of time doing that. But the way that the program was set up, especially in the first term, was that all the guys on the program were living in the same apartment building, and all the girls in a different apartment building just a block or two away. And the way that was set up, I ended up spending a lot of time just with the people on the program, which is great. They're lovely people. But it really, as a student on the program, you really had to push yourself to get out of that bubble that really we transported as 25, 30 students from mostly the US. We transported sort of our own culture, made this little bubble in Amman. We were speaking Arabic, of course, almost all the time. But to actually get a sense that you're in a different place around different people, you really had to try.
Our program just started after revolution in Egypt, like the first time after I think 2 years, and then so we had a lot of problems. It wasn't that organized, and I think my time there could have been used much better, and I could learn much better, like in terms of language. But I think at least the first 2 months was just wasted.
Strangely enough, I missed the academics at Middlebury. I still worked hard in my classes, and I learned a lot. Mostly my Arabic improved, but I missed being able to discuss really meaningful things in class and really express my opinion, because under the language pledge, you're very limited in what you can say. So while I feel like I developed really close friends, they didn't necessarily know all of me because I wasn't able to truly express myself. They didn't know my sense of humor at all, because humor is one of the hardest things to express in language. So I missed that too. I missed, on the one hand, being able to intellectually express myself, but also being able to emotionally express myself.
With men in Egypt, because I looked Egyptian, So I really didn't have a lot of problems until I talked. Like, I only remember one incident that a friend of mine who was American and I were walking in the street, and it was night. So it was a saloon. It was like a hall, a wedding hall, and then there were these guys in front of the door hall, and then one of them came so close to me that I had to like react, and I said like I like guarded myself, and I said something in Persian like get lost, but I said it in Persian, of course, because it's my native language, and it came automatically. And then my English friend, she said like fuck off, and then the guy said something in Arabic, and it was at the beginning, so it was like we were fighting, but we were everybody fighting in their native language. That was the only incident that I wasn't happy with, but other than that, because I look Egyptian, I think I could easily get past to Egyptian men. Like, nobody really cared so much about me.
It is very difficult to approach a member of the opposite sex in Jordan and get to know them very easily without having there be very uncomfortable tension sometimes. And I found that out in a class at the university, where out of 50 students, 50 Jordanian students, as my classmates, 45 were girls. During the first 2 weeks of that class, since I couldn't understand a word that the professor was saying during the lecture, I sat at the front row. But guys sit in the back of the classroom, because, yeah, they're cool like that. But when I was sitting at the front of this class, for the first 2 weeks, there was a little island of empty seats around me. All of the girls, kept their distance, and nobody said one word to me. And in fact, they're looking at me really weird, like, what is he after? I mean, why would a boy sit at the front of the class? And as time went on, they just got used to the weird American guy who, sits in the front row, and they finally sat close. And I got to talking and actually got to make a friend or two and have conversations that went past hello and how are you. But I was very even grateful for that.
I feel like there's a lot of animosity between men and women. I talked with one of my closest friends. She was rather religiously conservative, and she was also one cultural difference is we're very politically correct in the U.S. We don't go out and say, this group of people is all like this. But that's not necessarily true in Jordan. So this particular friend kind of would say things like, all Jews are blah, blah, blah. And I have to explain, I'm not a Jew, but that still really offends me because we don't talk like that in the U.S. And she would say things like that about men. So she would say things like, all men want is, we all know what all men want. And all men are, rude, and I'm gonna find that one guy, that one husband who's the special guy, but all men get jealous. All men are like this. All men are like this, and I wish that I could explain to her like, no, you can have guy friends, and they add like things to your life, and they make you see it in different ways, and you can have close bonds with them, but when you go to a gender-segregated elementary school and high school, and you only really interact with men when you get to college, and except for like your brothers and your fathers, I could see how that might develop.
It wasn't a cultural shock, but it was interesting, and it was like in university they were saying like boyfriend girlfriend is forbidden, but when we went to university there was a lot of these guys and girls that they were holding hands and they were walking around, and then when we asked them like, so if the boyfriend girlfriend is forbidden, it's not permitted here, then what are these people? And they were saying they came from villages and their parents are not here and they don't have any relatives, so it's so easy for them to hold hand and go around because nobody will know them, and it's okay as long as their parents don't see them.
On a more humorous note, I was proposed to 4 times in Jordan. One of them was a woman at the mosque who was trying to get me to marry her 40-year-old divorced husband, who, it was so funny, like her main selling point was that he's clean. He's clean. And if you emphasize that someone is clean, so many times, you start to kind of, it's like the lady doth protest too much. You kind of start to say like, wait, I should be worried that he has STDs?
There's also, I mean, a lot of difficulty in those very small everyday discussions about, you know, well, you have to clean up after your plates, when you don't understand the word for plates and you're trying to figure out what exactly your host mother's telling you to do. And then you forget because you don't understand, and she gets upset with you. And communication took on a whole different level of importance from some of that. And I think, but at the same time, that was, again, one of the most rewarding experiences with my host family.
I think there was still a difficult period of, wow, I can't express myself totally. Wow, these people will never really get to know me. Wow, I have no idea what to do in social situations. You just feel awkward and self-conscious all the time, and I think if that can count as culture shock, then I definitely had that. So it was kind of easy for me to make friends because I was like this new novelty, and I just randomly helped these girls carry their groceries up the stairs, and they were like, oh, come in, like, tell us all about America. And so I sat down with them, and one of the first things, why don't you wear makeup? And I was like, I don't like it. Like, I have a boyfriend, and I'm not like looking for male attention or anything like that. And they just like couldn't understand that, and they were like, you look so much prettier with makeup. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm sure you meant that as a compliment, but and you know, one of the favorite things one of my closest friends loved to do was straighten my hair and put makeup on me, and she took me to get my eyebrows plucked, and she loved like doing me up, and I kind of sat there and tolerated it, but I think it's because she doesn't get to like play with her hair and stuff, really, because she wore a hijab. So
they were thinking hijab is something that is in the Sharia, and it's a must for women. They should wear hijab, and I was trying to explain like there are different interpretations, and of course my Arabic was broken, so I wasn't sure if they really got what I tried to tell them, but I think they just nodded, paused for a moment, and then they said, okay. But I don't think they really believed me, or they even wanted to challenge that idea, because I found in like a lot of other Muslim countries, and I'm not here trying to generalize, but it's just my personal experience. Like their hijab wasn't a personal belief, but it was more like a cultural and a family thing that they had to do, because I remember my Egyptian roommate, she was wearing a lot of makeup, like and every time that we had to get out, I was telling him 3 hours before, like, hey, start wearing your makeup and start like changing your clothes, and it became like an inside joke between us. And then when I was teasing her, she was like, well, because you guys don't wear hijab, so you really don't need to take care so much of your appearance, because you already show off your beauty. But for me, because I wear hijab, so I have to wear a lot of makeup to, you know. And then I was like, well, don't wear it. And she was like, oh, it's not my choice. Like, my father, he wants me to wear hijab, and I cannot do, like, not to wear the hijab.
I think a lot of us came in with this idea that just studying abroad, just being there, we were going to emerge changed people. Students would come back from Egypt or from other abroad programs and say, man, this changed my life. I'm different. I have a different outlook. I think about everything differently. It's really, I'm a new person. And so there's this idea that you go and then something happens. Maybe you don't have anything to do with it, but during those 5 months or a year that you're there, something happens and you come back changed, better. You have a new outlook. But it doesn't just happen. You have to chase it.
صور الكارك ومعان أهل الأخوة الشجعان صور الكارك ومعان أهل الأخوة الشجعان